Hey, Dr. Nancy Zare, the LinkedIn sales whisperer, along with,
Hersh Rephun, the message therapist.
and two brains are better than one, right?
Indeed. That is our
So,
theme today.
yes, that's our theme. So tell me, what does that mean to you? Our two brains are better than one.
Well, it came up. I actually haven't told you this story, but it came up years ago when I partnered in my previous firm with data scientists and an informatics specialist. So they were technology people, tech heads, and at first we felt like, oh, we each do our own section. I do the creative, they do the technology, and you put the two things together. But what we realized was that we weren't just each doing our own thing. We were sharing specialties and creating a new thing with these double brains. And what we would explain to clients is we don't have a science department or data department and a creative department. We're double braining. We're putting our powers together to create something new. And I think that's what you and I are doing with this new community, with our respective talents and skills.
You are reminding me about multiple stories and events in my life. And I bet as the listener is thinking about it, how one plus one adds up to more than two. And what you're reminding me of is the synergy that comes when two or more people are thinking about the same thing, thinking about mulling over, sharing ideas, sharing experiences. And what happens is that it sparks new ideas and new thoughts and a new configuration. And in that sense, this is why people want to come together in a community, why they want to do something called brainstorming. I mean, this is a common thing that is done in many environments, uh, business environments, and why it's important to have a coach or other people that you work with, because you get to play off their knowledge and skills, which feeds yours. And then one plus one equals a much bigger number.
Yeah. And it's also different from mastermind. We discussed, should we do a mastermind? Do we want to bring a bunch of people with different expertise and kind of put it all together? And we settled on double braining versus a mastermind because we recognized that what we really want to focus on is a successful uh, experience between the vendor or service provider or consultant, whatever role they play, and their customer. And that's our real focus, is that relationship, the relationship they form with their prospect, which then becomes a customer, which then becomes hopefully a fan of their brand. And that whole cycle is served, we feel, by our unique confluence of skills. And that's the focus. You can't focus on everything. So to have, at this point anyway, a mastermind seems a little premature, but we will get there, um, because I do find that a lot of my clients have a tremendous amount to offer when it comes to insights on business development, and so forth. But I don't want to scatter all of the information.
Right. And as I'm thinking again about the combination of know and sell, the combination of identifying your brand and your marketing message, and then, obviously generating leads, qualifying the leads to become prospects, and then turning prospects into clients. As I think about that continuum, I think about the fact that really it is a continuum. It is a continuous flow of people within your network. And there are artificial boundaries that I believe are set up by labeling activities as marketing or labeling them as sales. I was in a program yesterday, a presentation where the fellow was helping us take a look at Sales Navigator as a tool in LinkedIn. And he mentioned that his focus was purely on sales. And I thought I didn't quite understand, like you have to reach out to people and develop connections. And to me, the reaching out, Hersh, is a part of what marketing is. Hence the fact that he said, no, what I'm talking about is purely sales. It made it feel transactional as opposed to it being relational. What are your thoughts?
I think that labels in general can be very limiting. So let's start with that notion. I
Yeah.
think that there are subcategories of sales that are very transactional, point of purchase, point of sale, um, things like that. But I think that when we're in this world of selling ourselves, making closing a sale or closing a new client or whatever that might be, marketing, we're I have actually come up with what I call in the work that I do in personal branding a presenting persona. So in other words, let's say that this is before the sale,
Mhm.
and you're appearing on a podcast, that's your presenting persona. Because for most of the listeners, even though some of your clients may be listening, they're not your client, they're your audience, and you're presenting to them. You do a keynote address, same thing. Uh, you're sitting down one on one with a client doing the work with them, that's not presenting. That is
Yeah.
your working persona.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you can call that first persona sales, marketing, right? PR, whatever you want to call it. It's a presenting persona. So I think that, and I've learned over the last few years that being a salesperson, quote unquote, is not a shameful thing either. And so, but I do feel like when people are on calls, discovery calls, sales calls, you want to call them, whatever, exploratory calls, that's another thing. The nomenclature of calls can mess with us. It's like, just think you're bringing forth your presenting persona, and that's what you're doing. So that if you
Yeah.
happen to end up doing business with that person, that's great. You can call it a sale later, or you can call it a sale when they get the invoice, because that's the
Mhm.
transactional moment. But don't think of yourself in terms of the small minded kind of, oh, I'm selling.
I truly appreciate that distinction and that giving it a term, the presenting persona versus the working persona. It really helps clarify for me what's going on. And again, there's not like a huge distinction. You haven't changed your personality.
No.
It's just that I know that certainly my presenting mode, especially if I'm presenting to more than one, that more than one person that I am is very different than when you and I have a private conversation. And of course, this episode, our Know and Sell Pointers, is an opportunity, and in some ways, Hersh, I think we've been trying to show what it would be like, what we are like as our working persona as we're talking to each other. And yet at the same time, we're both aware that there is an audience, and hence there is a presenting persona that is kind of blended in to this. Would you agree?
Yes, and I appreciate that point as well, Nancy, because it isn't the reason I put it out there was not to be super didactic and like try to really limit anybody. It's just let's get comfortable with the idea that when we are in front of a group of people, um, we have a certain persona that's going to be, I mean, if you've done theater, anyone who's done theater knows you have to project your voice to the back of the room. So
Yes.
clearly the way people present in
Mm-hmm.
a public forum, even though we have the
Mm-hmm.
benefit here of microphones and technology that allows us to, we could be having a Zoom together. It wouldn't be that much different, just you and I having a conversation or meeting over video. But
Mm-hmm.
we're definitely projecting for
Mm-hmm.
the purposes of being understood by an audience. And yes,
Exactly.
we're definitely trying to um, give both. We're not being super formal. We're being very direct and honest about our motivations and our passions, but we're also presenting in a
Mm-hmm.
way that people can appreciate. And I think that and if people wanted to call it sales, I would say that's fine, but when we use the term sales, especially because that's your expertise, let's focus on that as the conversion aspect, right? Does that make sense?
It does. Well, and I would actually go back to the definition of sales that I prefer, and it's the definition is influence. I personally, and I know many people have difficulty with the concept of selling, and I did in the past. I certainly, when I was growing up, the last thing I thought I would become would be someone who sold, a salesperson. And yet here I am now instructing, coaching, consulting, along this line. So wow, have I come a distance. But again, it's the word influence for me captures what's going on because we sell all the time. And that when we're talking to members of our family, and we want them to listen to us, heed us, take action, we are selling. That sales activity. And of course, when we're out there promoting ourselves, again, we're asking people even to do a micro mini commitment, which may be to have a conversation, accept our business card, schedule an appointment. All of those things are little sales going on all the
Yeah.
time. But I'd like to direct us again to talk more about this community, the Know and Sell Insiders group, that community that we are establishing, because people have been listening and watching these Know and Sell pointers now for several months, and I'm sure they're thinking, I'd like to get in on the action.
Yeah, yeah. And it certainly is something that we've been working on a while, and we're very excited about it. The Know and Sell Insiders community is going to offer the audience, the community, one-on-one sessions with the two of us, sessions on some level. At some levels, you'll be able to have one-on-one sessions with both of us, with each of us separately. Obviously, the engagement among community members is also part of it because that is certainly important. There's accountability, there's cheering one on, championing one another, the mutual support. That's something that we're both committed to. But it really does give people a chance to grow their personal brand, grow their sales expertise in their own lives, in their own businesses, and to do so in a way that is reasonable, affordable, and also allows for people to come in, come as you are, join in something that's really it's a weekly thing. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking that we need to emphasize the sandbox aspects of this. When we gather in a sandbox, we don't know what's going to be made, but you're playing with the sand, and there are other people playing with the sand, and together there can be some amazing stimuli. Again, it goes back to the title of this particular program about two brains, double brainers, because when you have more than one person focusing on your issue, on your brand, on your messaging, guess what? you get better results when there are more than one. And so the sandbox aspect is really powerful.
Yeah, and it just occurred to me as well that, you know, on the one hand you have the double braining, so we're providing the new, you know, the new sum total that comes to bear when when your sales whisperer expertise and my message therapy expertise come together. At the same time, you have an instant feedback loop from your peers in that
Mhm.
sandbox. And we've experienced that in other programs that we've been in where, you know, we'll say, I was thinking of doing this, and someone else will say, or write in the chat, or whatever it might be, or write in the community post, I love that. I had a thing like this, and this is what happened. And that kind of stuff is priceless because
Mhm.
feedback is just the best advice in the world means nothing if when you try it out you don't get feedback, and so
Yeah.
so we're committed to that as well.
Yeah, I remember Hersh when I was, I think, in early freshman college or something like that. I heard the concept of other people's money, and in this, and the value of being able to borrow and use other people's money. But in this case, it's other people's experience.
Yeah.
OPE, other people's experience. And when you are in a community, Hirsch and I, as you can tell, we're no juniors. We've got a little age here, a little experience, a lot of wisdom, and you're going to get the benefit of double brains plus some, and that is the value of the Know and Sell Insiders community.
Yeah. And now I I believe we will have a link posted here. I don't know when it's
Yeah,
going
not
to,
immediately.
not immediately, but if you are interested, you can simply drop a mention insiders, you know, in the comments. Just put insiders, and we will add you to the list so that you'll get notified as soon as the community is up and running.
That sounds like great. Okay, well, we're going to take our leave. This happens to be the week of July 4th in the United States. So this is a great time to launch our community. And so I'm wishing all of you a happy 4th of July, as well as to your sales success. Nancy Zare, sales whisperer, and
Hersh Rephun, the message therapist, wishing you a happy